In this video, we're going to show you to install the power steering return line on your Toyota Tundra, located on the back side of the power steering pump and connecting to the steering rack. Using our 16mm opening wrench, we're going to go ahead and loosen our lower line. We do have our catch can underneath. Now with that lower line out, we're going to use our 17mm. I want to go ahead and loosen the upper line here. Now on the top here, there are two lines that run across the top of the steering rack, and normally there's a bracket there to hold it. It's probably going to be a 10mm bolt with a bracket holding the two lines. Ours is missing, and it's held in place with a tie strap. So we're simply going to use our cutters and remove that tie strap. You want to go ahead and separate that clamp. Okay, so we have our high pressure line and our return line now separated from the rack itself. And we have our clamp right here. We have a 10mm bolt. We're going to go ahead and use our ratchet to go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt. Now our bracket is rusty and flimsy. That's why we're holding it with the pliers on the base here. You need to remove this 10mm bolt. Now we should have two lines running through this here. We just happen to have one. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. If you have both lines, go ahead and separate those now. So up here on the inside of the passenger side of the frame rail, we have a clamp right here holding two lines. Now this is basically an outline and a return line here. We have to remove this bolt right here. And then if we follow it forward, there's another clamp up back here. There's another clamp up in the back here. We need to remove this bolt. Now if we come around to the front side of the radiator, we have a line here. This is one of them, and then right above it is another one. Ours had a rotted line, so it's been replaced with one of these lines, so we have to remove this dead line. And these hoses run across and they meet up here with two clamps. They're right up on the top, so we're going to remove the clamps and remove the two rubber lines. There is a metal cooler tube up on the top here that comes over. So we're going to be working up in this general area. On the inside of the frame rail here, the clamp is held in with a 12mm bolt. And once you have this bolt out here, you're just going to move forward this way here. And there's going to be a second clamp. We want to go ahead and loosen and remove that bolt. You got to remove that bolt. Now we're going to separate these two. We're going to follow these two top lines across the front of the radiator. And that's going to connect to some rubber hoses. We're going to go ahead and separate those. We have our upper hose here. There's a hose clamp. You use a pair of pliers to go ahead and compress that clamp. Go ahead and pinch that hose clamp. We'll slide that back. You use a razor blade. We're just going to slit the hose. And slide that off. Now I want to disconnect the lower hose. This particular hose has a regular hose clamp on it that utilizes either a flathead screwdriver or a 1/4-inch socket. We're going to use our 1/4-inch on our ratchet here. Slide that hose clamp off. I'm going to do the same thing here. We're going to split that hose. At this point, with our lines disconnected, we're going to try and pull or snake the hose out over the front of the engine cross member here. With the hood open on the passenger side, here is our power steering reservoir. Now we need to go ahead and separate this hose here. Before we do so, I'm going to go ahead and take a pad here and just kind of set this in, tuck it in case we have any residual power steering fluid in there. Hopefully this will catch most of it. Use a pair of pliers. Move that back and just go ahead and twist that hose. We should be able to slide that right off. Now, for any reason, if that doesn't want to come off for you, you can take a razor blade and you can split this. Pop that off. Now I want to go ahead and pull this out from the bottom. Now right here we have our old line system removed. This bottom one here was rotted and the other side was broken. And we have the upper one here. This is the return line to the reservoir itself. So here we have our new line, and we want to go ahead and mock this up. And then I'm going to take the other line that runs underneath it, and you can see how it comes over right here. One goes up and the other one goes down. So this is basically going to be positioned just like that. These two lines are going to follow the contours of the bends. And as you can see, this back one here, it splits off just like this. Now the kit comes with these rubber sleeves. These are designed to go inside of the clamp system. So what we want to do is we want to try and salvage these clamps. And they pretty much just open up. I'm going to slide these off, hopefully without damaging those. Now before we install these here, we are going to want to go ahead and run our two lines to their respective areas, and then we can clamp everything together and anchor them to the chassis. I'm going to take our line here for our reservoir, feed that up. And run this along the side of the frame rail here. I'm going to line up that hose and want to get a hose clamp on there. I'm going to install a hose clamp. And slide this on. So I'm going to snug the hose clamp on this one here. I'm going to go ahead and install this hose on the reservoir up top. So we took our hose clamp off of the original hose. We're slipping it over the new hose. I'll line this up onto our reservoir. And slide this on. Go ahead and slide that hose on. Go ahead and use your pliers and move that hose clamp up into position. I can remove our towel. I'm going to take our line here. I'm going to feed this down and over. I'm going to take this line, I'm going to position this up. Now with the tube running parallel to the frame here, I'm just trying to position everything so there's no interference with the high pressure hose. So the lines themselves are positioned properly. The hose or the metal line that goes to the reservoir up top is on the top of the two, and then the one that runs to the steering rack is on the bottom. They're tight up against the frame. We can now install the hose right here onto the lower cooler line port. We just want to go ahead and install a hose clamp here. We go ahead and tighten our hose clamp, get that in a position. On the new line, install the O-ring over the end of the tube. Roll that down. With the new O-ring installed, I'm going to put a little bit of power steering fluid on that seal. Line it up into the rack, and I'm going to start the fitting by hand. You want to make sure you can get that threaded in several threads before putting any tools on there. Now on the inside of the passenger side of the frame rail, we have our clamp here. We need to position our high pressure line here, and then bring the cooler line over. Now we're going to install our rubber bushing here, and it's split on both sides, so we can go ahead and encase both lines. Then we're going to take our bracket here. I'm going to slide that down and over. Now we get one clamp, one bolt installed. We need to go ahead and repeat this process a little bit further back. At this point here, both of our clamps are installed, securing our lines. Line up the hose. Then you're just going to have to flex the unit around a little bit to go ahead and get that nut started. We did go ahead and put some power steering fluid on that O-ring. You just need to work this around gently to go ahead and get that nut started. You want to make sure you get it in several threads and make sure that this is not cross-threading. Now when these bottom out, you just want to make them good and snug. You don't want to over tighten them as you can crack the rack itself. So once it bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Now at this point here, on the top of your passenger side of the steering rack, there's probably going to be a mounting bracket right above this line here. You want to go ahead and install that bracket, and that should support both of these lines in place. Ours was missing, so we're going to go ahead and find an alternate way to secure that, but go ahead and install your bracket. Go ahead and open up the reservoir cap. Using the appropriate fluid for this model vehicle, I want to go ahead and add this fluid to the reservoir. Now the hole is really small on the top unless you have a very small funnel. And our setup is cold, so what we're going to do is on the side of the reservoir here, there is a cold mark, high and low, and then just to the left of it, that's a hot, high and low. So after you've driven the vehicle, you want to check that fluid level at that point. It should be in the hot area. We're going to fill this to the cold on the high side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and cycle the steering wheel left and right, and that will start to purge out any of the air bubbles in the system if we have any in there. And then we're just going to come back and check this here and fill it up accordingly. Once you're all set with this, you want to go ahead and take the vehicle for road test, come back and recheck it, and top off as needed.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.